never made it, but I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I can understand it fully. Appreciate my standing, go out of this world and right on time. Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up like this. I'm far away from Earth and I wanna know if you exist. Mission control, do you read me? Send me my coordinates lately. Mission control, am I drifting? Tie me to someone who will love me, yeah. Wait, I think I'll last a bit longer. Find another.
Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd family a part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. Happy Friday to everybody out there. And I know a lot of people are already off of work for Christmas break or Christmas vacation, whatever you want to call it. If you're one of those people, congratulations to you. But today here on the channel, I want to do a video that I have not yet done, and I have thought about it before, and I've actually thought deeply about it before, but never actually done it. But it's a video that I really need your feedback on, because without your feedback, it's really useless, because the purpose of the video is to get feedback. And they say a lot of times in sports, it's better to be lucky than good. You've got to be in the right place at the right time and have luck on your side. And there's always things that happen that make you say, what if? And when I say what if, I'm talking about a different what if than the whiny football fans that their team loses and they say, well, what if we didn't miss that kick? Or what if we didn't drop that pass? Those kind of things have always happened, always will, because none of us are perfect. I'm talking about a different kind of what if. What if things that change the course of a decade for a sport, or for wrestling, or for a team? And if one thing had gone differently throughout that decade, you may have seen more success or less success. So let's talk about that today. I wrote down 10 things that are what if things, and I could have wrote down more, but I want to do more of these in the future. And these are just the first 10 things that came to mind. I've got some football on here, some wrestling, some basketball, and some NASCAR. So if you watch any of those, feel free to comment. And if you hear the 10 that I've got and you can think of some more off the top of your head, please feel free to put them in the comment section down below. And while you're there, feel free to like the video, give the video a thumbs up, and share the video on all social media platforms. But the first one is, what if Drew Bledsoe didn't get hurt? And the reason why I say that is because if we remember back in time to when that happened, Drew Bledsoe was the Patriots' starting quarterback, and Tom Brady was the backup. And they had no intentions of playing Tom Brady, but they kind of had to, because he was the backup and Drew Bledsoe got seriously hurt. What if Drew Bledsoe didn't get hurt? Would the Patriots have just traded Tom Brady a couple years down the road? Would he have signed with somebody else because he wasn't playing? We'll never know. So the Patriots as a franchise and Tom Brady as a player could have both had completely different paths if Drew Bledsoe didn't suffer that serious injury. What if Bret Hart didn't leave the WWF? If we Think back to, I believe it was 1997 when he left the WWF to go to WCW. And at the time, he was a main event guy in the WWF. Would he have stayed a main event guy? Or could his career have lasted longer? Because remember, he went to WCW and he was 40 years old when he went. And then, only being there a couple of years, Goldberg gave Bret a concussion. And to this day, Bret has hard feelings towards Goldberg because of that. And he blames Goldberg for ending his career. But had he stayed in WWF, that wouldn't have happened. He may have wrestled till he was 50. We'll never know. What if Len Bias wouldn't have got on cocaine? Now, this goes back in the day in the NBA. And he got drafted, I believe, in 1986. And either the day of the draft or the day after the draft, he was found dead in the middle of the night in his motel room of a cocaine overdose. Now, a lot of people say that Len Bias was just as good, if not better, than Michael Jordan. But we'll never know because he never made it, because he was addicted to cocaine. So instead of these modern day people having all these arguments on who's the best player of all time, of course we know it's Bill Russell, but instead of the conversations about who's the best, is it Jordan, is it Hakeem, is it Kareem, is it Dr. J, we would have to say, is it Len Bias, if he would have been as good as he was projected to be, but we'll never know. What if Randy Orton would have been fired? Now, this goes back in the day in the WWE, because Randy Orton, as we know, got started very, very young, because it was clear pretty early that he was just a naturally gifted wrestler. He didn't need a lot of training. He didn't need a lot of video footage. He caught on instantly because he was born to be a wrestler. But a lot of times in the wrestling world, when you do something that makes your boss or bosses and company look foolish, they'll fire you just to try to teach you a lesson. Well, back in the day when Randy Orton was in his prime, he was a hothead, and he got mad very easy over everything. He was also a bad drinker back in the day. And there was one time back in the day, this had to have been 05, 06, 07, something like that, where he had his own motel room and he just completely destroyed the room. He got drunk and destroyed the bed and threw everything out the window, busted the TV. He messed up the toilet, he messed up the shower, messed up the sink. I mean, if it was in the room, he tore it up. And he caused that motel $3,000-$4,000 in damages. And when Vince McMahon got word, he almost fired him because you made the company look bad. And then Vince said, wait a minute, this is the most naturally gifted guy that I've got. If I fire him, he'll be signed by TNA tomorrow, and he'll never be back here again. So just imagine how different Randy's career would have been if he would have suffered the same fate as most wrestlers and been fired, but Vince said, no, I'll lose him, and I'll never get him back. What if Steve Sarkisian would have never been a drinker? Speaking of drinking, if we recall, Steve Sarkisian used to be the head coach at Washington. He left Washington to go to USC because it was a more prominent job. Well, he lost his job at USC not because of bad coaching, because he was a severe alcoholic. Of course, now he's gone to AA classes. He says he's clean and doesn't drink anymore. And of course, now he has Texas in the playoffs. But what if he would have never picked up an alcoholic beverage in his life? Would he still be at USC? We're talking about a USC program that might have had a completely different decade if Steve Sarkisian was their coach. And who would be at Texas right now? We'll never know. What if Jason Jordan didn't have his neck issues? Back to the wrestling world, Jason Jordan back in the day had a storyline where he was supposed to be the illegitimate son of Kurt Angle, and they did that because they say back in Kurt's younger days he had a thing for black women. He loved black women, so this was Vince's way to poke fun at him, was to give him a illegitimate son. But honestly, if you look at Jason Jordan in the face, he looks a lot like Kurt Angle, so he could actually pass for Kurt Angle's son. But right after that storyline ended, they found out that Jason Jordan had to retire for in-ring competition because of that. But that storyline was supposed to push him to the moon. Where would he have gone? We'll never know. He had to retire at a very, very, very young age. He still works there in behind-the-scenes roles. You see him on Raw on occasion in a suit. But as far as an in-ring competition, he can't do that. What if Terry Don Phillips would have listened to everybody else? Now, this goes back in the day for all the Clemson fans out there. Terry Don Phillips used to be the Clemson athletic director. The only good thing he ever did was hire Dabo Swinney. Everything else Terry Don Phillips did, he sucked at it. Everything else he didn't do, he sucked at it. But when Tommy Bowden was relieved of his head coaching duties in the 2008 season, Terry Don Phillips really didn't know who the next coach was going to be, but he said, I'm going to let Dabo be the interim coach. And everybody else told him, you're crazy. He's too young. And at the time, Dabo had been out of the game for 3-4 years selling real estate. But when he was on the coaching staff, he was a wide receiver coach. He had never called plays or anything. So everybody told Terry Don, you're crazy. You've got to go with somebody with some kind of experience on calling plays or something. And Terry Don just said, I've just got a feeling. And look where it's went. So what if he would have listened to everybody else and not gave Dabo the interim job? We don't know where Clemson would be 16 years later. What if Mr. Kennedy didn't get fired? Back to the wrestling world again. Now, Mr. Kennedy was supposed to be the illegitimate son of Vince McMahon, which is why his ring name was Mr. Kennedy, because Vince's middle name is Kennedy. But Mr. Kennedy got fired because right in the middle of the storyline, he went crazy and got in the ring and almost injured 4 or 5 guys in one match. And they all got backstage and said, well, I'm not working with that guy anymore. So Vince felt like he didn't have any other solution but to fire the guy. Well, they ended up having to say that Hornswoggle was Vince's illegitimate son because Mr. Kennedy got fired. But had that not happened, he may have been a future world champion. We'll never know. What if Dale Earnhardt didn't die in that Daytona accident? Because think about all the different things NASCAR's done since then as far as technology-wise inside the car. Things that probably would have never happened had that not have happened. So his death actually helped future drivers get safer vehicles. And otherwise, it probably wouldn't have happened. Now, of course, there's been some deaths since then, but nothing like there was, before that. But the changes that we've seen in NASCAR probably would have never happened if Dale Earnhardt hadn't have died, because all the other drivers that had been killed over the years in motorsports didn't have the name recognition that Dale Earnhardt did. So when they got killed, it was just like, well, it's racing. But when Dale Earnhardt got killed, it was like, wait a minute, we've got to change something. And the last one, back to the wrestling world, was what if Goldberg didn't get William Regal fired? And in case you don't know, that's actually the God's honest truth. Goldberg unintentionally got William Regal fired because they had a match scheduled for Nitro, and anybody that's ever seen Goldberg wrestle, you know that he sucks. It's no secret. He's a terrible wrestler. And William Regal was one of the most underrated, if not the most underrated wrestler of all time besides Barry Windham. So William Regal was told to go out there, have a match with Goldberg, make it last 6 to 7 minutes, and make it be a wrestling match, but make Goldberg look good. Nobody told William Regal that Goldberg cannot wrestle. Nobody told William Regal that Goldberg has no idea what an armbar is. So he gets in the ring and starts doing basic wrestling moves, and Goldberg is lost. He has no idea what's going on. And you can actually go back on YouTube and type up Goldberg versus William Regal, and you can find the match. You can see that Goldberg was clueless. So on national television, William Regal is making Goldberg look bad unintentionally because he was told to go out there and have a wrestling match with Goldberg. Well, William Regal being a wrestler, he's in the ring having a wrestling match, and the guy that he's wrestling has no clue what's going on. So since William Regal made Goldberg look bad on national television, when he got to the back, he got fired. But what would have happened? William Regal may have never ended up in the WWE had that not have happened. He may have had a much, much, much longer in-ring career had that not have happened, because William Regal was a phenomenal wrestler. And where would Goldberg's career have went? Because it was clear after that happened that he couldn't wrestle. But how many more matches would Goldberg have had where he didn't know a hill of beans about wrestling had it not been for William Regal? We'll never know. Those are just some of the what ifs I thought of yesterday, and I thought of all of those in about 5 or 6 minutes. And those are just things that would change a decade or more for the course of a sport or a team or a player had one thing gone differently. Any thoughts on it, please feel free to let me know. Homes for Our Troops is a publicly funded 501c nonprofit organization that builds and donates specially adapted custom homes nationwide for severely injured post 9/11 veterans. Since the 2004 inception, nearly 90 cents of every dollar spent has gone directly to our program services for veterans. Visit at hfotusa.org. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. How does an Englishman invite a dinosaur for lunch? T, Rex. And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.